Shop, Founder Friday edition. Today we're talking with Casey and Jeremy Miller, founders of The Mud House in St. Louis, Missouri. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and today is Founder Friday. It is the last Founder Friday and last episode of 2018, and I am just very excited to interview Casey and Jeremy Miller of the Mud House in St. Louis for one particular reason. This time of year, I find, is all about gathering together in a simple way, serving with love and warmth and quality time and quality food and drink. And this is exactly what you experience at the Mud House in St. Louis. Ever since maybe 2 or 3 years ago, discovering this cafe, every time I'm in St. Louis, I always make a beeline for this place, for breakfast, for coffee, whatever. The vibe there is indicative of the spirit the owners have toward their customers and their community, and I'm just thrilled to share this interview with you, and I can't think of a better way to cap off 2018 than with this interview. So great things in store for that. I want to remind you all that the voting is still open over at Sprudge, where they're having the Sprudgies, the 10th annual Sprudgies, and Keys to the Shop, thanks to you all, has been nominated for a Sprudgie for Best Podcast. And I'm just really grateful for all of you who nominated Keys to the Shop. Thank you so much. If you want to vote for Keys to the Shop, voting is open until January 4th, and I'll provide a link to the voting page on Sprudge in the show notes. So thanks very much, everybody. I truly appreciate it. Now, Keys to the Shop would not be able to do what it does if it was not for the support of our sponsors. So I want to take time to thank them today, starting with Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is a leading specialty coffee equipment supplier who curates the best equipment from around the world to fit perfectly with the needs of both their enthusiast and professional customers, helping you succeed in making great coffee at home or in your shop is what drives them. So if you're looking for the best equipment and expert assistance to go along with it, look no further than prima-coffee.com. And now through December 31st, so there's just a couple days left of this deal, customers can receive a Mazzer Mini electric grinder in silver entirely for free with their Astoria espresso machine purchase. Simply add the machine and the grinder to your cart to see instant savings. And I got to tell you, this is a fantastic deal. It's a free grinder. So go to prima-coffee.com for that, as well as all of your other equipment needs. Let them know that Keys to the Shop sent you in the How Did You Hear About Us section as you check out. And thank you very much, Prima, for your support of Keys to the Shop. I'd also like to thank Pacific Foods, the fine folks behind the Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages that are designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence that they demand. So you could be using soy, coconut, almond, rice, oat, it doesn't matter. Its ability to take the heat of steaming, produce an unmatched silky texture, and keep the flavor balance of your beverage focused on coffee makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. Pacific is a huge supporter of the coffee community and barista community. These products are just one of the evidences of that fact, and I would highly encourage you to go to pacificfoods.com and learn more about the Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages and see what they can do to help elevate the non-dairy offerings in your cafe. So thank you very much to Pacific for your support of Keys to the Shop. All right, so today we're going to be talking with Casey and Jeremy Miller, owners of the Mud House in St. Louis, Missouri. And this episode may be one of the most candid episodes of Founder Friday that we've had. Right up there with Erica Escalante of the Arrow Coffee House in Portland. And I think you're really going to enjoy this one. The Mud House has been open for almost 10 years now, and ever since the beginning of their company, their goal has been to provide a very cozy, a very hospitable, and low-key but excellent experience, whether you're having coffee or breakfast or pastries, or whatever it is. They have a full service kitchen. They're even beginning to roast their own coffee. And their approach to how they accomplish the feel of the coffee shop, the ambiance that drives people to come back, and the quality of what they produce. This is kind of like the holy grail in terms of third places, because oftentimes we'll have an experience where things are really low key and comfortable, but the quality isn't necessarily there. Or we have a really high quality experience, but it's cold and uninviting. And one of the things I love about the Mud House is that it's both inviting and it's excellent, and consistently so. So in this conversation with Casey and Jeremy, we're getting a candid look into their journey as coffee shop entrepreneurs and the challenges and joys that go along with that. First getting established, making sure that you're dotting all the I's and crossing the T's legally with the city, challenges like that, accounting and financial challenges. How do you come up with money to start a business like this? And how do you make decisions about quality standards for your food and coffee on day one? And how do those things evolve over time? We discuss the organic growth of their company culture, what they look for in people when it comes to who joins the team at the Mud House, what it takes to sustain the culture that they have there. There's definitely a lot here to be inspired by and to learn from. So let's dive right in. Here now is my interview with the founders of the Mud House in St. Louis, Missouri, Casey and Jeremy Miller. Casey, Jeremy, welcome to Keys to the Shop. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Howdy, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. This is my first experience on a podcast, and we listened to this in the shop. I know Ryan, our general manager, is really into your podcast, and he just was like, "Oh, you would never believe you guys were invited to be on the podcast." I was like, "With Chris." I was like, "Oh wow, this is all right. Let's do it." So thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's my honor. That's exciting. I love your shop. I discovered it, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, and just loved the feel of it, the quality of the food and the coffee, the service, everything about it. It's definitely a place that I go when I'm in the St. Louis area. So kudos. How long has it been open now, the Mud House?
It'll be 10 years. We're having our 10-year party on January 6th.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I think it was like January 4th, 2009. So, obviously, the economy was booming around 2008. And we got into the cafe business. So,
I think our parents were like, "Are you kidding me?"
Well, it wasn't your first business, though. Let's start here. How did you get to starting a coffee shop or a coffee business? And your original careers, I guess, were in antiques. How did this transition happen?
So I guess I can talk a little bit about this for a second, then Casey can. We were both. I've worked in restaurants since I was a kid. I started off as a host, and I've waited tables, I've bartended, and yada yada yada. And Casey's been an illustrator and painter for I don't know ever, yeah. And was doing a lot of that, and we were just kind of hustling antiques on the side. We have a record store, so I've always kind of been into selling records. We sold records actually at Mud House for a while, but we were selling those at an antique mall and doing furniture and books and this, that, and the other. And and I think the shop kind of feels that way. There's books for sale and stuff all around, typewriters, and so that's kind of what we were into before. And I met a gentleman, just a customer at the restaurant I was working at that was interested. He was in his 70s, and we were talking about just like a small business, and Casey and I wanted to work together and do our own thing if it were ever an option. And he said, well, if you ever find anything that's available on the market, I'll help you write a business plan. That's kind of what I do. And that's really what happened. He found the cafe on a website.
Might have been Craigslist.
No, I think it was a website. We had to sign some paperwork, where non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that. But they were selling the cafe. It had been there for like a maybe a year and a half or 2 years, and that's kind of how we got into it.
It was pretty fun to, while we were in conversation with the previous owners, we would come down to the shop and we'd order coffee and we'd order food and we'd talk to the employees and we'd sit and be like, okay, that girl was really cool and nice. She will come with the shop. And that thing on the wall's got to go. And it was fun to imagine it as ours. And it's in a neighborhood. It's on a street called Cherokee Street, but it's Cherokee Antique Row. So we kind of just fell in line with other antique shop people. And it felt really natural and really right, although we didn't know a whole lot about the business.
Yeah, well, and Casey's mom is a dealer, so she did. They actually did an auction at one of these antique shops on the street. So that's kind of how we found out about the neighborhood to begin with, as Antique Row. And so when we found the shop, it's like, oh, it's on Cherokee. It's we're familiar with Cherokee, and it just kind of went from there.
So you were just looking for a business to get into, to work together. And since you had been in restaurants, was it something that was it a bygone conclusion that you were going to work in some kind of a food service establishment? You just didn't know what it was and it happened to be coffee?
Kind of. We had a few things fall through. So with this guy, this 70-year-old gentleman that helped us with Mud House, he was kind of working it out with another place, and that didn't work. So we had financing behind it. Not really.
We were trying to
figure it all out.
We had no idea what we were doing. So, I don't have a college degree. I went to school for everything under the sun at the University of Louisville. Except business. Never knew what I wanted to do. I love people. I love food. And it was a thing where we were just like, hey, this seems doable. It seems like a mom and pop shop. The overhead is low. I think we can learn how to do all this stuff. I didn't know anything about coffee. I didn't know how to cook. So looking back, we were insane. It was, I don't know, knowing what I know now, it's just like, holy cow, what were we thinking?
Early Yelp reviews were pretty funny. They're like, this really is a mom and pop shop. Mom's in the front, yelling at dad in the back. And that is how it began.
Yeah, I never thought I would work. My mom was like, oh, you should, apply at Ford and all these things. I was just like, I don't see myself working for, I feel like I just want to work for myself. And I think that was really ultimately our motivation. It's like, we liked each other. We could get along working together. And we wanted to be around people. So it was just kind of an environment that worked out for us.
Excellent. So, and it fell in line again with your interest in antiques. And when you took over the shop, you renamed it something in a similar vein as what it was named previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was called. So what happened before was there was a coffee roaster starting up the street. We have an old brewery. Our neighborhood, the buildings are all from late 1800s. So there's an old brewery up the street called the Limp Brewery, and he was roasting coffee out of the Limp Brewery, and he kind of caught wind that this couple was going to open a cafe, and his company is called Mississippi Mud Coffee Company. And he knocked on the door of the old owners of the cafe and said, hey, I roast up the street. If you guys don't have a name yet, would you be interested in kind of jumping on to the Mississippi Mud name? Maybe you could be Mississippi Mud Cafe or Mud House or something, and we can help each other brand. So that's what the name was. And when we got a hold of it, was Mississippi Mud House. And I mean, we don't really have any sort of connection to Mississippi, and writing that on a check forever. So we were just like, let's just go, with Mud House. Sounds good. We weren't trying to reinvent the wheel or anything.
We were also really new to the neighborhood, and it was a neighborhood place, and people really loved it. And so we didn't want our neighbors to think oh, who are these kids moving in, changing the name, changing the vibe. So we changed very slowly. And the name didn't change very far.
That's wise. The familiarity is still there, so it can be referenced pretty easily.
Yeah.
So going into this, it's interesting. You didn't have any experience in coffee. Obviously, you're probably coffee drinkers beforehand,
Dude,
right?
we were drinking like Starbucks mochas. We lived right behind Starbucks in the Loop. And, what else is there? There was a place down the street that the coffee wasn't great. And, yeah, you got to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, well, so take me through how you decided to, like, when you first established the business and opened your doors, kind of rebranded it and gave out the first menus. What was that like? Like, how did you end up deciding on the array of offerings and the standards that you would start with?
Well, so we kind of basically what we did, we went into the shop and we said, hey, they're doing pastries, they're doing coffee, and they're doing pastries, they're doing coffee, and they're doing food. So what of this? We thought that they were doing coffee better than anything else. So we're like, all right, well, we'll learn how to make the espresso and how to do the coffee. Most of our experience is going to be in the food. So what do we want to change about the food? They were buying all their pastries in. So we're like, oh, we'll just make the pastries. I mean, terribly inexperienced. So we go and we're like, oh, we're going to redo the food menu. We're going to work on the coffee menu, and we're going to make all of our own pastries. Not really knowing what we were doing, but we got lucky with. So we basically did an inventory of what was in, what we were buying, and said, all right, we can use this, we can use this, we can use this, and we kind of went. We didn't have a lot of startup capital, so we're like, we're just going to go with the ingredients that we have and the things that we can work with and go from there. So a week before we opened, we called everyone that we knew that had ever worked in a kitchen and said, hey, can any of you help out with this? We're opening a cafe and we need some help prepping. So we got a hold of a few friends that helped us prep the night before, kind of work out a menu. And we reached out to an old friend of ours who was living in France for about just under a year. His name's Mark Welker. And Mark we knew him here in St. Louis, and he had went to France and was working on a place in Louisville, oddly enough, and their financing fell through. So he didn't have a job. And I reached out to him, and he was like, well, look, I don't have a job. If you guys can put me up for, say, 3 months, I'll help you get the place going. So he's now the executive pastry chef at the Nomad in 11 Madison Park in New York. So that really helped us a lot. Came in, he taught me how to make all the pastries. So we developed a pastry menu. We didn't have a hood in the kitchen, so we were doing a lot of things without a hood. So we bought a crepe stone. So we were making crepes. Him just getting back from France was pretty hip to that. So we were making crepes. We were making all house-made pastries, which obviously we still do. So our original menu was crepes, and we were doing paninis because we couldn't cook. We still don't have a fryer, so we don't fry anything, but we didn't have a hood, so we weren't really cooking with flame. There was a 4-burner flat-top electric stove in there with a convection oven that you would see in an apartment.
Oh my God.
And a hood that would go into an apartment, not vented outside.
Well, you obviously made it work. The early years of coffee, like, what did you decide in terms of how you were going to approach the coffee menu to go along with the pastries? So
what was interesting is I remember just thinking about this kind of off the cuff. Mark told us that the thing that you should definitely roast your own coffee. That's the thing that's going on in New York. This was 10 years ago, get into roasting your own coffee. And of course it took us, 10 years to do that. But we approached it just from really simplifying everything. And we were in a position where we didn't have a ton of experience or expertise. We had to rely on everyone that was around us.
We were trained by the people that worked there prior to us owning it. And so they had tons of experience and they knew how to work the machine and break it down. And we learned from them and have just been evolving ever since.
Yeah, I remember we had a Swift grinder, and this was 2 espresso machines ago, and 3 grinders ago. So just kind of learning how, no one really even knew how to work that thing. So just trying to figure out how to make a consistent, pull it a consistent shot with a piece of equipment that wasn't very consistent. It was interesting. I think we really just tried to strip everything down. We got rid of all of the syrups and things like that.
We began making our own.
Started making our own syrups and just simplifying, like using, the folks up the street at Cacao to make chocolate syrup and things like that. Like, I don't remember when all of that started, but we really just tried to pare everything down and be as simple as possible and just make it good and just offer less, but put more into what we were offering.
Well, I love that. Making your own syrups is definitely it's so easy to do. I'm surprised more people don't do it honestly.
Yeah, it is easy.
Yeah, it's the same as, it's like baking a cake. You can buy a box with all the stuff in there, but it's equally as easy just to mix those ingredients yourself. It's just, I don't know where that came from. I'm guessing it was kind of the TV dinner culture or whatever, but sometimes it's easier to simplify and just put more effort in the things that you're doing and just don't do as much of it. I truly believe that just doing things well, make it good. Regardless, if you're doing 2 things, just make it good. And that's all you do. You don't have to offer everything to everybody.
Or if you're stealing from 11 Madison Park, make it nice.
Yeah, make it nice.
I mean, we all get inspiration from different places, and coffee should actually reach out to experience of restaurant people more than they do. So that's awesome. You evolved your coffee offerings over time. You said it took you 10 years. Are you roasting your own right now? Are you a wholesale client of another roastery?
So I guess the arc was we've always been, so we started off with using Mississippi mud stuff. And then we've just the arc has been, we went briefly to Broadway. So a multi-roaster. So we went from that to like a multi-roaster. And that picked up when we were doing Broadway, that was doing out of Kansas City, was doing our house. Then Blueprint opened in St. Louis. We shifted almost everything over to Blueprint, our espresso, some of our pour over bar, our house. They're doing our cold brew. And now we're doing, the company that we started is called Momo. And it's after the Missouri Bigfoot, Missouri Sasquatch. And so Ryan Renwick is our general manager, and he's doing the roasting and running the cafe. And
nice.
So that's so now we do Momo. So we still do Blueprint. Blueprint has a really good, they service all of our equipment. We have a great relationship with them. So they'll take care of, the water filtration. And if we need any fine tuning, which you always do, of the espresso grinder or the espresso machine, things that we can't do, or the Fetco or the EK, they help us with ordering parts and kind of teach us how to do our own stuff when we have any interest in it. So right now, like, we're doing our house and our cold brew, and one of our espressos through Momo, and the other ones are through Blueprint.
Nice. Congrats on that. I always think of that relationship where you still have an ongoing relationship with a wholesaler, but you're still doing your own thing, like a tap room brewing their own beer, but also carrying another type or several other types. It's not unheard of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and you want to offer, we have the ability to make whatever product we're bringing in, like make it the best that we can make it. Whether we're using the refractometer, we can dial about everything in. So we like to give people an offering. So it's like Blueprint and Momo, and we'll carry, one other.
What do we have right now? Onyx?
Yeah, right now
a lot of Onyx.
So nice. Onyx on the pour over bar. And so we're out, just give people a little bit of variety with the drip, which is nice.
What were the most challenging aspects of starting this business? Outside of the, what we already talked about, which, putting together a menu and scrapping together with the equipment that you had to make something really great and simple and great menu items. Like, what were the biggest challenges in getting the operation off the ground to a place where you thought this is going to work, this is successful?
Well, for me, it was everything having to do with the government and taxes and paperwork and bill paying and finding an accountant, those sorts of things, the things I'm not great at.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to a business, you've got the day-to-day where you're dealing with customers, and you've got the ordering, and you have the staffing, and the whole back end of it that I guess really nobody ever sees.
But it's the only way you stay in business.
Yeah, the bill paying, and you're paying your taxes.
I mean,
and all of your licensing, and that stuff was 100% foreign. I mean, we knew we liked coffee, we liked to eat, we liked people. We've worked with other people before. You want to meet customers, you can decorate a place, whatever, all that stuff you've done before. But, where having a business class would be great is paying all the bills.
Yeah. Are we an S Corp or C Corp? What is that?
That can be pretty scary. You don't know what the wrong answer is, and you don't know what the right answer is.
And man, the wrong answer can get you in a deep, dark hole.
Well, we definitely, again, we've just been really fortunate and really lucky that the people that have worked at the shop have been awesome. The customers have been awesome. The neighborhood's been awesome. And friends just asking. I would say I have no problem asking for help because I will give it if I'm asked. And I just think that is a complete circle. You ask, all people can do is say is no. All they can say is no.
It's not even so much asking, it's talking to a lot of people and finding out what they're into and what they're interested in. And sometimes you meet an accountant and he is the best.
Well, yeah, sometimes you meet, it's in the city, the city of St. Louis, I have to give them credit, has a business assistance center. And the lady down there, I still remember her name.
Dorothy Humphrey Holmes.
Yeah, Dorothy Humphrey Holmes. Gives you a checklist and says, hey, you need to get an EIN number and you need to get insurance and all this stuff that you need to check off, and you need to get this from the city. And that was huge. We just had a checklist, and that whole period of my life I've blacked out. We've opened other businesses since, and it's just like, oh, it's a checklist. You get this, and this. The city comes in and inspects everything. You've got a bank account. You've got an operating agreement, and all these things that seem really scary, but really it's not. Once you do it, it's the information's out there. Now with being on the internet, you can get anything. You can print an operating agreement off the.
I think the internet was around 10 years ago.
It was around, yeah.
I don't think we were. Yeah.
Surfing on your flip phones.
Well, how difficult was it for us to get set up here on our end?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
Chris, what am I doing?
Yeah. I love that they gave you that checklist, and because that's exactly what somebody in that position would want, especially if it's something the city has given you, because then it's not just how to not get in trouble with your business for dummies, page 95. It's your city, the people that would hold you accountable. So it seems like a good way to allay some of those fears.
Yeah, it's very scary. I mean, you want to pay your bills, and you've got a bunch of them, whether it's like food, we use local food purveyors. So we're getting, our pork from Todd Geisert, who's raising the animals and delivers the pork to the shop. So that's not the person you want to screw up when it comes time to pay the bills. So my mother-in-law pays all of her bills. I think that's important, is just, you have to know really what, some things that I've been told.
You have to know your weaknesses and then find the people that are capable.
Yeah, know what you're not good at.
Yeah.
And just kind of always be replacing yourself. That was a piece of advice that I got was, always be replacing yourself so that you can do something else.
And so you can look at the big picture. We have a staff of 20 something, and they're in the day to day, and then we have our little group of people that manage the kitchen and manage the front, and their assistants or their sous chef, and they're looking a little farther than everybody else, and we get it done every day. Yeah. I will give. We got the best piece of advice from somebody. Open a second bank account just for sales tax.
Wow.
That's huge. Yeah.
Like, dude, you make that deposit and you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. and then sales tax comes and
you have no money,
and you've spent it, or
your gross quarterly tax. That's another big one where it's just like, oh, we have no money in our checking account. So if you never put it in there to begin with, you just deposit it separately.
It's sales tax is never your money. So to have a separate account that only gets touched by your accountant,
Right, because it'd be too tempting to look at your bills and want to pull from it.
You just forget that that's not yours.
Mm-hmm. So you're having these people take care of these things for you that you're not necessarily the greatest at. It's not like you can just pick an accountant out of the sky. I mean, even if you met a few of them, they might not be the best. This goes down to a question about the people that you bring on. Like, how do you choose the people that both work in the business and, hiring for baristas and cooks and things like that, as well as that team of people that has to manage those operational necessities?
Well, you kind of want to work with your friends. I think that's very basic. You want to work with someone that you totally jive with. Not friends, but someone that, that you can read and they get you. And so you hire people that you're on the same page, and I don't know, they're good at their job and they love it and they're excited and they get other people excited. So when, when Ryan hires someone new, he has a really great read on people and he gets them excited about making coffee and about learning about coffee. And so we just keep surrounding ourselves with people that love being there.
I try to, when I look at like going in, essentially when you hire someone to do anything, you're going into a partnership. So a good partnership, I think, is really, it's like a good marriage and a relationship, whatever the dynamic you're in, you really have to, each person has to bring something complementary to the table. So I think when bringing someone on board, it's like, hey, are they passionate? Really, I just look for passion. So, are they a nice person? I truly believe that most people are nice. So yeah, hopefully number one would be that they're nice people, outgoing personality, if it's customer service or if they're an accountant, that's not important, but are they interested in what they're doing? And do they have a skill set that I don't? Can they better our dynamic? We don't have to be into the same thing. Do we like the same music? Great. If not, maybe they can challenge me a little bit and I can grow. And I think that that's really a thing that I would look for as well, is finding someone that's passionate and looking for passion, whether that passion is mutual or whether it's something that you're not into at all. You just feel like it can better the environment. Well, and I think that's the number one thing is passion.
When it comes to hiring people with passion, have you ever experienced an interview where that the person is very passionate, but they're not the right person for the job? And if so, how do you know that? And how do you differentiate between somebody who has passion but isn't necessarily the right person for this job you're looking for? For instance, a managerial position.
I think Casey had just kind of going on to what she was saying, where I don't really have the vocabulary for it, but if it's, you just know, I get a feeling. I don't know that everyone's like this. Obviously, I just know myself. I hope that I do. You just get a feeling from someone, and you get a read. So kind of knowing throughout the years, there's this person, and this person's been here for 5 years and 6 years and 3 years. And would this person get along with Keith or with Ryan or with Jordan or whoever? And I think that's kind of what I think about, where it isn't necessarily me, but I put their personality in context to the whole. Mm-hmm. So our friend Mark that helped us get going he was very intense. It's like, hey, like we were living together, and Mark would be like, hey, when we get home from work, we can't talk about work. And it's like, well, that's not how I work. We have to talk about work. That sort of intensity maybe would not work well for me for 10 years. And I just know that about myself. So like, what kind of personality can I get along with? Or it's more who can I get along with and less can they get along with me? Because I feel like it's my job to make the relationship work. Especially when you're running a business, you have to put in that effort and make sure everyone gets along and kind of make everyone happy. Like, I think that's part of my job, is to be, guiding the business, but also be creating a positive atmosphere and keeping people excited. And I think that how to know when I don't think there's a right answer. It's not so definitive. I don't think when someone, the passion isn't going to work. I mean, because we've had 3 accountants and we've had, just a couple of managers. Luckily the managers have worked out.
Yeah, but when it comes to management and we promote from within. So people have been there a really long time, and it just is the natural progression of things that they move a step up and they take on more responsibility and they know the place.
I think we've rarely actually hired anyone into a managerial position from outside the company, because maybe one time, and that worked out. We've done that twice and that worked out. Both times it worked out well, but you have to take chances on people. It's no different than people taking chances on you. We borrowed money from everyone that we knew to get the place going. It isn't like we were sitting on a bunch of cash. We just went around and borrowed money from our roommate and from customers that were coming into the restaurant. I mean, it gets down to just asking for stuff again. It's like, hey, will you loan us some money? And hopefully they take a chance on you. And that's really what I think a lot of small business is. You have to take chances. And when it doesn't work out, you have to learn from it. But you're building a foundation. So, when I got into buying and selling records, I wouldn't always know when I'm buying, or books. It's like, oh, I think this is a first edition. Well, you pay up for it and it's a book club first edition. And it's like, well, I learned the hard way that this wasn't a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, but now I know. And I think that's no different with hiring or staffing or running a business. Is you're going to get burned, but you can't keep going back and touching that burner. It's just time and experience. There's no golden secret, I think, to hiring people. It's just being present, I try to give people what I want in return. And I feel like people reciprocate that just on a human level pretty naturally. And just be genuine. But there's no way to predict whether it's going to work out or not. You got to be willing to lose. And I don't think that you would get into a small business if you were afraid of failing ultimately. I feel like that was long-winded, but I kept thinking in the back of my mind, my mom's afraid to fly, right? So when I was a kid, we went on vacation. We ended up on one of these little prop planes, and we're flying to Florida or something. And my mom's terrified. This was 20 plus years ago and hasn't flown since. And she's always like, I thought you were afraid to fly. I said, well, I'm definitely afraid to fly, but my love of travel is stronger than my fear of flying. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of that's what it is in business, where it's like, I'm afraid to fail or afraid to lose, but ultimately I'm going to follow my heart and hope that that prevails.
I love that you're leaning on this learned, intuition that just gets richer and richer as you experience more things. I think we all do that, obviously, with relationships outside of work and decisions that we make about things in our lives. And so it makes sense that you would do the same thing in business. I agree. I think there isn't like this super insightful question that if you get it wrong, you're not hired. You get it right, you're hired. So I completely understand where you're coming from. When it comes to guaranteeing the work of the people that you do hire, what structures do you have in place for communication and operations that helps ensure that, even if you leave for a week, or so, that the business is in good hands, things are going to get done? Like, what do those structures look like for the Mud House?
Well, when it comes to a new hire, they generally start, front of the house. They'll start with food running and working the register. So with that, they get to know the food, they get to know what it looks like, how it's garnished. And they get to know customers because they see every single person that comes through that line on a Saturday. It's lots of people and
a lot of regulars.
That's like
your business. Our business is built on regulars.
Yeah. So and then in downtime, they'll like during a shift, they'll make a drink with supervision, but not for a customer. We just do a lot of downtime training, and we also have we do cupping, and we have like latte making classes, and just foaming. We just learn how to steam milk and how to make a V60. So we have these classes and like just a checklist of have you done this, and I'd say it's rigorous, but you got to let these people go for it and be proud of their drinks, and it's pretty cool to watch how quickly they learn. Like it's and then to see people enjoying their coffee. And this girl kind of just started, and then that's very cool.
Mm. And I think the kitchen, they'll start, either basically start from prepping. So prepping and then working the line or doing pastry. Everyone does a little bit of everything. We also do a thing where we tip pull. So we don't have, the thing that I've always kind of noticed in restaurants is the front and back of the house friction, where the servers are making so much money and the kitchen's doing they're providing the food for the servers to make money, and the servers don't have to work as hard. That's always it's at least a dynamic that I've experienced. So we try to everyone basically is everyone's on the same team. We're tip pulling. So if you leave a tip, we break it amongst everyone that works. That dollar gets split however many different ways, and just try to keep people on the same page. We try to, when people, you were saying when people come and go, we get a lot of people that are in bands or artists. We have flexibility. We want to offer flexibility in this business. We want to treat it more like a career rather than just a passing through. So we try to, if you want to treat it as a career, there's that side of it. If you want to learn about running a small business, we're there as much as I can learn. I mean, knowledge is free. And if you want to use it as a secondary job and you're in a band or you're an artist, we try to have as much flexibility as possible. But so we hire people with that in mind, and in a way so essentially there are a little bit of all of those categories on the schedule. But we have a manager, and we've got an assistant manager, and we have a chef, and we have a pastry chef. And those are positions that just kind of came about organically. They weren't there initially. I was doing all of the pastry and working some of the line, and Casey was in the front of the house, and we had a manager with her. And slowly that just morphed into, okay, we have more staff now. We're a little bit busier. It's year 3, it's year 4. People are buying pastries at this rate. Maybe we need to get someone in here that is better at this than I am. Or we're selling we'll do like a daily hash. I'm not a chef. We need a chef that can make seasonal specialties, a soup or a hash or a salad, or really it's just you find a need and you have to fill that need with that person. We didn't just go into it and just staff up really huge and step back and let it roll. That it was a little bit more organic than that, where there was a need and we tried to hire for that need or fill that need. And it's a little bit the same with the actual space. Every year we try to do something for the business that the business needs. So in year 2, as I mentioned before, we didn't have a hood. So we put a hood and a gas line and got a new stove and a brand new used oven. And, another year we redid the bar and we added the pour over bar and redid the tile. And another year we redid the electric in the building. So it's kind of, we didn't just go in and everything was there. Whether it's staffing or whether it's upgrading your electrical service, you kind of work up to the need will present itself, and you just hope that everything is in the right place at the right time. You got a good landlord that's willing to help out, which we totally do. They're awesome. Or you have a staff that's willing to make some changes. And it's like, hey, I remember going to Blue Bottle Coffee 8 years ago in San Francisco, and being like, oh, we should do pour over. It's huge. And we went to Four Barrel and all these spots that were in San Francisco at the time, relatively new, and then bringing them back. And it's like, well, everyone doesn't seem to be as excited about this as I am. So it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but I think as long as you just shelve it, you hopefully will get there in the future. But just wait for the needs, and when there's a need, you try to fill that void. And I think, hopefully that answers the question.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that very thoroughly answers the question. We oftentimes, I think, will want a checklist like you had with the business concerns in the beginning about taxes and EIN numbers and things like that. We'll look to a corporation and say, well, if I start my business, then by year 2, I'm going to need these different official positions within the company. And if I don't get these official positions, then maybe I'm not doing it the right way. And it sounds like you're just taking inventory of what's happening live, always being present. I like that word you used earlier about leadership, being present to see the needs of your business and react and act in a way that, lets those needs be fulfilled in a organic way rather than shoehorning a system into your business.
Yep.
Would you say that patience is one of the attributes that really helps you grow the structures that help your business stay open?
For sure.
Yeah, I think patience is probably one of the most important virtues, when it comes to this kind of business. I think what goes along with patience, like say I have patience, I need to be able to communicate that to everyone else, because not everyone's going to have patience. If what I could tell you 10 things that need to be done at the shop right now, but why they aren't getting done, just communicating with people and be like, hey, I know that we need to tile the mop sink area. This is why it's not getting done. We're doing this, this, and this. So being patient, but also communicating with people that are there in a different capacity than you are, or at a different time than you are, and just letting them know that, hey, this is on the agenda and we will get to it. We're being patient, but we also have a few other things that need to be done.
You have to prioritize. There are a lot of things,
that's the word.
a lot of moving parts, and our staff, a lot of them have been there a very long time, and they feel comfortable they feel comfortable telling us when we need something new, or when this is maybe going to break, or there's this new amazing coffee thing out there that like we really should have, and we should try it, and no one around here is doing it. So we're open to all of their ideas, because they are there every day, and they also see the needs of the shop and of our customers, and anything to make their job easier, if it's within our means, we try to take care of it.
Or you just figure out a way. It's like, we want to get an EK grinder. But it's like, all right, we're not going to be able to find one of those used, but we want to get an EK, and our double door fridge is leaking, and the top oven on the double stack isn't working.
Dude, so it's something every day.
Yeah, so it's like this week, for example, we're in just outside Cincinnati buying a new double stack oven. Again, a brand new used oven. So that's kind of the thing. Everything's always on. We close at 4, but the equipment doesn't turn off. So that's the other thing. Things are always breaking. So just kind of keeping that stuff fine-tuned for the day-to-day to work, and also being able to purchase new equipment to really push your business and go into the next phase of it. At some point we may be looking to buy a coffee roaster. So on the side, just researching a little bit about that and kind of keeping an eye on it. Is there a used market for these? It's a balancing act, but you have to be patient. We can't just buy a roaster right now. If Ryan were like, hey, let's, Momo's where we want it to be. Why don't we try to set up a roasting facility, somewhere on the street? It's a less of a drive for me. I can house more inventory, whatever it might be. I need to be researching on the side, learning a little bit about that while also being able to get a new oven when we need one, or replacing the tile, or redoing the menu boards, or, it's just
prioritizing.
It's prioritizing and being patient. I think that might be the magic right there. And I've never thought of myself as a patient person. We're in a culture now where everyone wants everything now. I mean, what are we the drone thing with Amazon? It's so ridiculous. Why do we need it? And, it's like, I'm 38, so I remember life before cell phones, and I don't know that life is any better with all this technology and communication.
I think we're less patient. We're less patient now because of it.
Yeah, we're less patient. So I think it's harder for people younger than me to be patient. They've never had to be patient, really.
You might have to wait 7 minutes for a latte because we're gonna get it right.
We'll dump it out if it's not right, or we'll recook those poached eggs that took a little bit longer than a fried egg, but we want it to be right. So I think that goes on both ends. I feel like customers actually are patient, and if you're consistent, sometimes that takes time. Consistency isn't a guarantee. Sometimes you got to do it again to make it consistent, right?
Yeah, agreed. Now, what you're talking about prioritizing and patience, and this is something that you're obviously, as owners, you're constantly juggling the needs of both people and equipment, spaces and customers. So the question is, out of that list of 10 things that you can think of right now, how do you decide what gets the money and what has to wait for the money?
Well, I guess so. If we can pretend for a second that money is not, if money is not in the conversation, that you can afford everything, which is never the case. Obviously, that's a factor, whether you can afford this, that, or the other. But really, the thing that, from my perspective, I don't know if Casey looks at it the same way or not, but it's whether or not what's affecting the most people. So is this affecting the customer experience? Is this affecting morale? Is it affecting the staff? And just kind of gauging it from that perspective. Like, we have some broken tile behind the bar, but we put down bar mats and I want to replace that tile, but it's not affecting anyone's life because we have bar mats down. So is that as a big a deal as replacing the bathroom fan? Well, the bathroom fan's a bigger deal, It's just, where does it fall? If it isn't about money, where does it fall? Like, how many people's lives is it affecting negatively? And go from that. Like, our water spigot was broken the other day.
It just wouldn't turn off.
Would not turn off. So every customer that wants to drink water in there wants to go to this filtered water spigot and get water. And if it's not working, that complicates the customer's life and everyone working to figure out, to have a conversation with everyone that's used to going over there and having to fill the new water in a location where it's never been.
Yeah.
So that small repair goes to the top of the list of fixing the double door cooler that isn't working, because we can put everything in the other cooler. So it's that's a lot of detail, but
well, it's interesting to talk about, because I think it's such an intuitive and I think right on the money in terms of advice for how to prioritize things. However, that there are people who would want that new coffee thing. As an owner, you might have the purse strings, right, to buy it at the detriment of something that does affect people's lives. And it might be a temptation to be like, I really, really, really want this thing for the cafe, and I'm the owner, so I can do it, and I'm just going to do it. But that has so many negative ramifications.
Yeah, we all like shiny objects,
sure,
right?
Sure, of course. We all want what we want. But, we don't, 'tis the season. We don't always get what we ask for.
Well, we're fortunate that we don't get a lot of pressure to have, everything right now. Everyone kind of knows. I mean, we make it a point. I mean, it's important for me to feel like we have a family and that we're there for each other. And if something's needed, call me. Like, there's no reason to not ask me for anything or ask Casey for anything. So there's really no surprises when it comes to, I think everyone knows where the business is, kind of where we all are as people and what's going on. So I feel pretty in tune with that. Like there's no one's really missing out. Like we have a conversation. It's like, hey, can this wait another week? Or how important is that? Do we really need, when we bought the refractometer, that's a really good, probably a good way to weigh this conversation. I think it was $800.
Yeah.
And, how important is that? Do we need a refractometer? Because we don't give a latte with a lecture, really. If you want to talk about the coffee, we put all of the
Pretension.
all the pretensions in there. I hate to use that word, but all the nerdiness is in every cup. It's in the drip, it's in the pour over, it's in the espresso. But we don't push it up front, but we can talk about it if people want. And I think that was the big thing for Ryan. Wanted to get the refractometer a few years ago because he's like, look, like we don't have to. This kind of goes with we don't have to talk about anything, but people can taste it. And I know scientifically that this cup has, X parts per million of insolubles, and it's going to taste the way that I want it to taste. And hopefully people are just like, hey, this Momo is great. What are you doing with it? How are you brewing it? Or this Blueprint cup is amazing. And we can break it down and tell them, this is how we brewed it. This is how many grams of water we use. Here's what we ground it on. And, all of that stuff if people are interested. But, for me, it's like no one sees that shiny object, but it affects everyone's life, So it's, I don't know. It's a constant, it isn't a struggle. It's just a juggling act because there is the urge to want like how many new espresso machines come out every year? The mod bar or a 3-group versus a 2-group, or, do you want painted panels? Do you want see-through panels? Do you want it to light up? Whatever, it's, these things are amazing, but, espresso machines are the price of cars. So, this.
Yeah.
It's, thankfully we don't get a lot of pressure to upgrade the espresso machine every year.
Well, it kind of leads me to the next question. As we're wrapping up here, I'm interested to know, we've talked about intuition. We've talked about being present as leaders and empowering other people to do jobs around your cafe to ensure that things are happening the way they're supposed to be and customers are getting a good experience. So what do you want people to experience as your legacy? So if somebody comes into St. Louis and they have a visit to your shop and they get breakfast and coffee, what is it that you hope they will take away from that experience?
Well, I want everyone, and I believe this, I believe we've achieved this, but everyone that walks through the door should be totally comfortable being there, like so welcome. And everyone wants their customers to have the best experience, from the coffee to the food to the atmosphere to the customer service, until they walk back out the door. And getting to know people and caring about their lives and remembering their order, remembering what they drink, and like giving them a free cup of coffee once in a while just because like they seem a little down. We just want to keep developing this really rad community. And we're in the center of a very cool city and a really cool neighborhood. And we care about people a lot, and we just happen to make good coffee and good food. And we're so grateful people still, like after 10 years, man, people still come to Mud House and we still see new faces. And then we see them again. And that's the best feeling.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I would say the same. I would say if there's like one word, it would be like community, and love. And we all want to be loved. We all want to be welcome. And we all want to feel good, and you can learn, you can be challenged in ways and this, that, and the other, as long as you're comfortable, your mind will be open, but you never want to be put off by, you don't want to walk in somewhere and feel like you're out of place. And
I always think like, how would I want my mom to be treated? If my mom came into a place that she thought was too hipster, or she felt I don't know. I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. I want everyone to be, treated like mom. I could cry with my mom. Treat everybody like my mother.
Yeah, she doesn't like the music a lot and asks people to turn the music down, but so do customers.
But
It's
she's
like,
yeah.
like, so she's a funny example, but yeah, it's like that's the gauge, or like what would my parents want, and that's it, just you treat it's so cliche, but it's like really the truest thing. You just treat people the way you want to be treated. It's just we're nowhere without each other, like what is life without relationships, without each other, and we're in a business for that, and we're fortunate for it, and we're fortunate for the people that come in there like you, that's like, hey, you come, hey, will you drink too much coffee and talk my head off? Like, sure, I'll do that right now. That's the thing. It's like we just want to be a place. I mean, people come in, they've gotten engaged, or they do photo shoots, or they've ran into old friends, or
they
made new friends.
They bring their new baby out for the first time, and it's to the mud house, or it's birthdays, and like what an honor that they've chosen the mud house to do that.
That's the best. Yeah, those are my favorite times in coffee working, seeing the progression of people in the shop. Their families grow, they become such a part of your world, and vice versa. It's just back to the core idea of having that third place that binds a community together. I think your community is really fortunate to have you both running a place where you have that value, and that's something that you infuse into the way that you operate and how you prioritize things. So what is it that you would say is sort of a final piece of advice to people running coffee shops, or even people that are going to start running a coffee or start a coffee business? How do they run a great cafe from your experience?
I mean, I think it's tough because everything's so, so singular. Like my experience is different from Casey's, even though we're in this together. It's like I think it's important to identify what it is that you want to get out of something. What are your expectations like for yourself? What do you want to get out of things? Why are you doing this? And kind of go from there. And I've just, I grew up in a small town. I went to a small school. I want to be surrounded by people and culture and gain as much experience as I can in life. And I want to pass that along to whoever I can. That's why I am personally in small business. There is flexibility, but it's also very difficult and all of those things. But when it's all working, when everything's clicking and everything's coming together, it's like absolutely beautiful, and it's addictive. But that's why I'm interested in it. That's why I do it. Like even with the record store, it's called Dead Wax Records. I've got a partner down there, and it's like the reason why I have a record store is because I'm a nerd about vinyl, and thankfully, like other people care about it, and I just like talking about music. It isn't like some huge money-making venture,
and it's a block away from the mud house.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
But it was a bucket list thing for me I've never worked in a record store. I've never been cool enough to work in a record store. I don't know enough about music or whatever. But it was a bucket list thing. So it's like, hey, this may never make $1, but I want to have a record store. And it's kind of the same with the cafe. Like, why do you want to have a cafe? What is it that you're looking for? And I think for us, it was working together and being a part of a community. And, for me, it's like I worked in places where I think I can do it better. And it's like, well, like, here's your chance. Can you do it better? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, better is just different. It's through your own lens. Better is irrelevant. It's just different. And do people like your version? Do they like your ingredients? And fortunately, like, people support us, and I want to in turn support them. So we will run the best business that we can.
Leading by example is so important, giving it your all, and other people see that and they want to work as hard as you are working, and learning together is a real thing. I'll go with what Jeremy said. What do you want to get out of it? What do you want to give? What is there a blank space that needs to be filled? Is there in your life or in a neighborhood, or not knowing a lot about coffee in the beginning is pretty scary.
A lot about like how to cook is scary.
Or taxes and not knowing anything and just learning as we go. And I don't know, man. I can't answer that. We're so deep into it. It's so second nature by now. Just do what you love. If you love it, it shows and people notice.
Well, and I think you got to want to be on a team. It's like, I love being on a team. It's just like
I'm so good at a team.
It's so like it's great. Like we've just been like super fortunate with the people that have come through there. That are way better at what they do than what I am. Everyone there can cook better than me, can pull better shots, can steam better than me. But that makes me feel good. Phil Jackson wasn't the best basketball player on the Bulls. You know what I mean? So I'm by no means saying like we're Phil Jackson or anything, but I'm just saying there's a part for everybody, and I never have been the best player or the best team member, but I got something to offer, and I'm looking for what other people have to offer so that hopefully we can have one of the best teams around.
Well, I really appreciate all of the honest and insightful things that you've been talking about with your business. It is, in my opinion, I feel like it's really refreshing to see a business as successful as yours be run by two people that have such an intuition toward community and toward organic growth, and that your heart for all of that after all these years is the same. And it shows when you go to your shop. And so I just want to encourage you with that, and also say thank you for joining us on the show today to discuss the ins and outs of entrepreneurship. And no doubt there's tons of other things that we could talk about, but learning from your experiences and your heart for your business has been incredible. So how can people reach out to you and learn more about your business?
Well, we love Instagram. Everybody loves a photo and a caption. And you keep up to date on, what's in the pastry case today, or, is the Mud House throwing a party, which we are. So if you're in St. Louis, come to the Stadium on the 6th.
Yeah, we're doing that. Or you can mudhouse@gmail.
It's mudhousestl@gmail, and you can find Jeremy or me or Ryan
or Nathan or Robin or anyone
or come down to Cherokee Street. It's
And our website. We have a website. Do people still tell people to go to websites? What is it?
www.themudhouse.com.
Yeah, we're all of those things. We're hooked up to all that.
Your
stuff.
listeners are smart. So. They know how to find.
Oh yeah.
They know how to find people.
Yeah, we'll have links too, so it'll be easy for them. But guys, thank you so much for your time and in just leading by example and all that you've shared today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for letting me wow. I like to talk, and I'm like, man, I'm talking to a blank screen here, and it's surreal.
I've been talking to this dot, and I'm like, wait a minute, is the camera really on the other side? What if it is?
Yeah, what if it is? But no, thanks so much. This is super cool, and if you're ever in St. Louis, like let's just hang out so I can ask you some questions.
That sounds good. Well, thank you guys again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
You as well.
All right.
Bye.
Well, I really hope that at the end of this conversation with Casey and Jeremy, you get the feel for what they're trying to do over at the Mud House. I would definitely encourage you to visit their shop to see for yourself what kind of a feel it has. And really their whole story, their whole journey as entrepreneurs is just a testimony to the fact that when you are building up relationships around you and seeking to serve genuinely your staff and your community, and you've got a lot of passion for the work that you do, a lot of the details of your work will figure themselves out. You don't necessarily have to start with a preordained structure or your organization. As you see with them, they've almost 10 years now of a successful business that has served their community well. It's different for everybody, but you will always benefit from having passion, having great relationships around you, and serving those relationships well and genuinely. So again, I'm really excited to have gotten a chance to bring on Casey and Jeremy from the Mud House. Thank you very much for coming onto the show and sharing your wisdom and experiences with the Keys to the Shop community. We're definitely the better for it. Now, if you want the show notes for this episode, you can go to keystotheshop.com, and on the sidebar, there's a place for you to put your email address. And when you do that, you'll be signed up to receive the newsletter every 2 weeks that has the show notes in it. It has the key takeaways from every conversation, as well as the resources and the links mentioned throughout the episode. There's also news about upcoming events with Keys to the Shop, as well as additional links that I come across during the course of the weeks to help you grow professionally, whether it's about management or personal development, or maybe even something not coffee related, but novel and helpful. Those are included in the newsletter as well. So keystotheshop.com, enter your email address there, and it's as easy as that. Now, if you want to reach out to me, it's chris@keystotheshop.com. Just email me if you have questions, comments, feedback, things like that. I really love hearing from all of you. If there are things that you want to hear on the show that we have not covered, there are topics that you think would be really great to hear about, definitely hit me up. You can also reach out to me over on Instagram. Just direct message me. I'm usually really great about responding. And so New Year is coming, everybody. And there are some cool things coming for Keys to the Shop, a new website in the works, and also a new project for Keys to the Shop that I will be announcing within the next month or so. So kind of cryptic right there. But anyway, I hope you all have an amazing new year. And don't forget to enter that giveaway. Terry Zinowich is giving away the 1-year subscription to Baskets, Gaskets, Screens, and Screws. Or if you're a coffee shop owner or somebody who just wants to gift your cafe the gift of baskets, gaskets, screens, and screws, be sure to enter this contest. We'll be drawing on the 1st of January, and you can find details for how to go about entering over at the Instagram post for Terry's episode. So that's it for today's Founder Friday. Thank you for joining me, and be sure to tune in for the next Founder Friday in January as we welcome Jeremy Zhang of Uni Coffee Roasters in Nanjing, China. That's going to be a really great one as well. And I hope you have a great one. Happy New Year, and thank you for listening to Keys to the Shop. Love you all, and as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.